Hello and welcome to the second episode of Ghosts and That. I'm your host Andrew, and tonight I'm going to be talking about Hat Green's secret nuclear bunker in Nantwich. But first I want to say a massive thank you to absolutely everybody that has listened to episode 1, give me feedback, commented on it on Spotify, followed me on TikTok, followed me on Instagram, followed me on Facebook, everybody that's liked a post, shared a post, everything. I just want to say a massive thank you for that because it's massively appreciated. I didn't realise that when I first wanted to do a podcast about just how much work goes into it, how much research, the recording, editing side. I don't have a massive team of researchers, obviously. I don't have somebody to record this for me. I don't have any of that. So obviously I'm doing it all on my own. I've had to learn how to use a laptop properly. I've had to learn what equipment to use, how to use it, how to record, how to edit, all sorts. And I think I'm doing alright. I've had some decent feedback on the first episode. The only thing somebody said about the first episode was that it was a bit too short. And I get that, but it was just an introduction. So I think it gave a pretty good idea of what's to come and how the podcast is going to sound. I think my idea in my head is alright. I mean, I would rather speak to people about their experiences, and that'll be happening in the future. I've been speaking to a couple of people today being the 540th of January, so in about 3 million days time it'll be February, and then in February I'm in the middle of booking an interview with somebody. I think if you listen to paranormal podcasts you will have heard of this person, and I think it's going to be a very good interview. I have a lot of questions for this guy, and I think, yeah, it's going to be a good one. But until then, until we've got some interviews recorded, you're going to have to put up with me for a bit. I'm going to talk about some of my experiences, and I'm hopefully going to interview my partner Sophie this weekend so we can have a good chat about all the things I love about the paranormal and all the things I hate about the paranormal. She has some experiences of her own as well, so we're going to have a bit of a dive into them. And I want to talk about stuff like paranormal TV shows as well, and paranormal YouTube channels, paranormal TikTokers, stuff like that. So yeah, I've got a few ideas and we'll see how it pans out. But until then, today I'm going to be talking about Hat Green's secret nuclear bunker in Nantwich. Hat Green Nuclear Bunker is situated just south of Nantwich. Nantwich was also the site of the Battle of Nantwich, which was the 25th of January 1644 between the Royalists and the Parliamentarians. As battles go in the Civil War, it wasn't the bloodiest, but there was more prisoners taken than people killed. It's possible that the bunker was actually built on the land where the battle was fought, but I can't be sure about that. But that must have something to do with the amount of paranormal activity that has been reported there in the past. So, the origins of Hat Green. In World War II, it was built as a decoy to confuse German Luftwaffe bombers from bombing Crewe Railway Junction. Crewe Railway Junction back in the war was an integral part of the country's infrastructure. It helped transport personnel, weapons and supplies all across the country, so there's no way we could lose that during World War II. So the site of where the bunker is today, it was used as a decoy, and what they used to do when they heard the air raid sirens go off and when they knew bombers were coming over, possibly to target Crewe, they would light fires all round the land to imitate, like, how can I put it, like a burning town or a burning city, hence creating a false target for the German bombers. After World War II, it joined the RAF's 12 Group Protection against Soviet threats and evolved with new radar tech. In the 1950s, it was upgraded under the secret Rota project into a major bunker for a long-range radar controlling interceptors and missile defences. It also served as air traffic control for military and civil aviation purposes. In the 1970s, the Home Office took over the site basically and converted it into a massive fallout shelter, basically for regional government, just in case the Russians decided to bomb us and flatten us all. There'd be some people in local government that would be able to try and get some normality back after, like, during fallout and stuff like that. With the Cold War ending, the government abandoned this site and then it was sold off in the 1990s. In 1998, the bunker was reopened to the public and turned into a Cold War museum. One interesting fact I was told by the woman that works there, she told me that they house the largest public display of decommissioned nuclear weapons in Europe. If they were all active, then they would have the 5th largest collection in the world. So I didn't know this when I first went on this investigation. I had no idea, and I was talking to my mum and she said, "Oh well, your granddad was stationed there for a year." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, your granddad was stationed there for a year." She said they lived in Nantwich for a year. And so I thought I'll message my mum's sister, my auntie, and she said, to be honest, she couldn't really remember much because she was only 7. But they lived there around 1960, 1961, and they lived in the married quarters. And my granddad used to cycle to work, and he worked as a steward and was a corporal at the time. And his job at Hat Green was like the civilian equivalent of front of house in a posh restaurant. He worked in the mess, arranging day-to-day catering and also formal dinners. He also knew a hell of a lot about silver service, and for someone that didn't know anything about it or didn't drink it, he knew a hell of a lot about wine. After the year they spent at Hat Green, my mum and my granddad and that, they all moved to Singapore where he continued his career. So, let's get into some of the hauntings of Hat Green. I remember watching the episode of Most Haunted when they went to Hat Green to do an investigation. Now I'm going to reference Most Haunted a lot because, as you know, I love it. I can't fault it. Now, some of the supposed apparitions that have been seen are of obviously people in a military uniform, and there's also been sightings of people have seen like disembodied arms sticking out of the walls and stuff like that. Now, I'd probably relate that to maybe the Battle of Nantwich, where they've disturbed the ground when they've dug up the bunker. Maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know, but that's what I've been told, and that's what obviously I saw on that episode of Most Haunted. If you've seen that episode of Most Haunted, you'll know that the medium guy that they had walking around, he picked up on a woman that had died there. Her name was Joan, and I think it's the same woman that was either pushed or jumped off the yellow staircase. The yellow staircase links the ground floor of the bunker, and it goes 40 feet down to obviously the bottom floor. And apparently she jumped off there. Now, the story that was told on Most Haunted was that she was in like a lesbian relationship, and something to do with the shame of that, she couldn't deal with it at the time. Obviously things back then were a lot different, and people weren't as accepting as they are today. From what I remember of that episode, people had seen her just recreating that moment when she fell and plummeted to her death. But now I want to go into the whole experience, from my journey there to meeting everybody to having a walk around to doing the actual investigation. So, how did this opportunity come about? Well, long story short, my partner's a hairdresser, and this woman called Joanne came in to do her hair. They got talking about ghosts and that, as you do. And Joanne goes, I do paranormal investigations and stuff like that. And Sophie's like, oh, fantastic. my partner Andrew, he's into all that, and he'd love to go on an investigation. Joanne was like, well, we'll get him on one. So she gave Joanne my email address. She emailed me, and she was like, right, in November, do you want to go on an investigation? I was like, absolutely, 100%, let's do this. And then she sent me over the information, and then when it said, Hat Green, I was like, oh my God, not only am I going on a paranormal investigation, my first professional paranormal investigation with a proper team, it's in a nuclear bunker. I mean, what could be better than that? So obviously I took her up on the opportunity straight away. So I got all the information sent to me, who I was going to be investigating with. I think in total there was probably, I'm going to say 15 people, which isn't too bad really, because you hear about people going on paranormal investigations, there's like 60 odd people in a prison running around screaming at each other. Nah, that's not for me, that. So anyway, I had to be there for 7 p.m. So I set off from where I live in Stockport, I think about 5:30. So started off driving onto the motorway. I think at one point went on the M6, and then suddenly this fog just rolled in out of absolutely nowhere, and I couldn't see a frigging thing. So you're going on the motorway, you're going on all these A roads, and then you get to a point where you're on country roads, and these are like single lane, there's fog everywhere, you can't see a bloody thing, and I'm like creeping round these roads. So you can imagine, I've got my fog lights on, all you can see is fog in front of you and the hedgerow either side of the road. So I'm following my sat nav, and I can just see this like there's like little red light as I'm coming round the corners of these like country roads. I'm going past like cute little cottages, stuff like that, and I'm carrying going up, and as I turn this corner you just see these massive gates, and then the building, the ground level building right in front of you with a massive antenna sticking out with like this like red lights all over it, and it was creepy as anything. To be fair, you couldn't have picked a better night to do it. The whole atmosphere was unbelievable, and it was freezing, and I mean bitterly cold. So being northern, I was like, do I need my big coat? Nah, I'll be alright for a bit. So I've got like jeans, t-shirt and a hoodie on. I'm thinking, yeah, I'll be alright. I'll take my big coat just in case. I think if we're going underground, it's going to get a bit nippy. So everybody else pulls up. We all park in the car park. The woman that was opening the building, she opened up, let us all in. Everybody piles in, they all put their equipment down, we all get a brew and continue to have like a welcome meeting where they talk about past investigations and just generally asking how everybody is and how we're going to do this evening. So I sits down, gets a brew, and I'm speaking to Joanne, and I look and I'm thinking, am I seeing things? And there's just a cat. And I'm thinking, what's a cat doing here? But apparently the bunker has its own bunker cat called Goulash. But sadly Goulash actually died recently. But at the time when I seen him, he was just loving it, just chilling, walking about this bunker, living the dream. After we'd all got acquainted, had a brew and that, Bryony, the lady that opened the place for us, who was staying there all night, she took us on a tour. So we started off on the upper levels, and she was telling us all relevant information about the building, stuff like that, and then we went downstairs and she was showing us all the like the artifacts and stuff like that. Everything you see in Hat Green isn't original to the building, so everything in there now has been brought from other places. So there's a theory when people have been doing investigations there that the equipment and some of the artifacts and stuff like that that have been placed in there, they hold the energy, which sort of encourages the paranormal activity that has allegedly happened there. One artifact that I was buzzing off that I thought was mint was this. There's what it's called, the green phone. So it's in a cabinet. If you go there, you'll see it yourself. And there's only 2 left in the country, or in existence, I think. One is in Hack Green and one is in Buckingham Palace. Now, these phones were a direct contact between Buckingham Palace and these sites around the UK to coordinate certain things during wartime, and I thought that was super interesting, to be honest. So after the initial walk around, we all pile back upstairs to the cafe, and we all go into our respective teams who we're going to be investigating with, this, that and the other. I get put in a group with Joanne and a lady called Karen. So all the lights are off now. It's dark, it's cold. The lights are on where we are, but everywhere else in the bunker the lights are off. But I really needed a piss. And I'm like, I don't even know where the toilets are. So I'm thinking, right, I've got to sort it out. So I need to go for a wee. So I get my little torch out and I go through the doors, these double doors, and then that's it. It's just black corridors going off in every direction. So I see a sign, toilet. So I follow it and it's dark, and I'm thinking, I'm on my own in here. So I'm having a wander down and I'm going through all these little tiny corridors and I find the toilet. So stick the torch in my mouth, does the business, then walk back. And I'm thinking, it doesn't feel too bad in it, do you know what I mean? It's just cold. But at the time, doing that, I didn't feel like nervous or anything. I was just excited to get going, obviously, because I've never done anything like this before. So anyway, after I'd done that, we all separated off. And I think the first room I investigated with Joanne and Karen was what is now a cinema room. I don't know what the room was used back in the day, but it's a room with a huge cinema screen and rows of, like, you know, them seats you have in cinema where you can pull the seat down and they flip back up and all that. So that's where we started off our investigation in there. Joanna's got loads and loads of equipment, like all the gadgets you could possibly think of. So we've got what's called a REM pod, if you know what that is. It emits like an EMF signal. It has like an electromagnetic field, and when you go near it or touch it, it makes like a buzzing sound. And she had again, if you know what these are, the cat balls, when you touch them they light up. So sensors, motion sensors, so if you go past them it makes a noise. So we position them all around. So I go and sit in a far corner, and there's a couple of cat balls on these seats like dotted about, and I'm sat in a corner. And then Joanne starts calling out. We all introduce ourselves, and again Joanne starts calling out, and I could just see one of these cat balls flickering after she said something. And I'm thinking, well, they need to be touched, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Before they do anything. And I thought that was a bit odd. But yeah, that was pretty much really the only thing that happened in that room. The only problem with the bunker, when you've got other people investigating in there, it is very echoey. So some things can get contaminated. You can think, oh, I've heard something over here, or I've heard something over here, but it could be somebody else. But that was just literally the beginning of what happened that night. We investigated all of upstairs, every single room, spent a good amount of time in each room, and it was quite quiet. After that, we regrouped upstairs, had a bit of a break, and then there was obviously at the beginning there was some people downstairs investigating, there was some people upstairs. Then we swapped over, so we went downstairs. Now, I've heard a story, and this was on, again, I'm going to go on about Most Haunted again, but this was on Most Haunted. So when the bunker was taken over, or was being emptied, I think it was being emptied, there was 2 barrels found in this little tiny room. Now this little tiny room now is like an air raid shelter experience, where if you press a button, loads of noises happen, there's lights flashing. It's a tiny dark room. There is literally no natural light in there whatsoever. But there was 2 barrels found in this room, supposedly contained 2 dead bodies. Now I don't know how true that is. I did ask Bryony, like on the snide, I went, I heard this, is this true? And she was like, yeah, that happened. Well, allegedly happened. I was like, no way. And so I decided I'm going to go and sit in this dark room on my own. Do you know what I mean? And I sat there probably for 15-20 minutes, and 15-20 minutes on your own in a dark room is a long time. But again, I don't know, I might not be sensitive to stuff like this, but it didn't bother me. I thought, if I stay in here any longer, I'm going to nod off. You know what I mean? So then we came out of there and we went into it looked like a boardroom, like a meeting room. There was loads of maps all over the walls, stuff like that. And it was like tables and chairs, this, that and the other. And there was a ring of chairs and a table in the middle. So I said, well, can we do a Ouija board? So Joanne sets the Ouija board up. So me, Joanne and Karen have got our fingers on the planchette, and we're asking questions, and it's moving slightly to like different numbers. Now I'm quite skeptical about Ouija boards, don't get me wrong, but I just thought, is this person a spy? And suddenly this planchette just shot over to no. And I was like, I think I've annoyed somebody here. Do you know what I mean? And then it moved back. And that's it. We just completely... After that, nothing else happened. So at this point, we're getting near the end of the investigation. It's getting on a bit. It's around midnight. So me and Joanne decide that we're going to go to the yellow staircase. So I'm stood at the top. Joanne is probably sat about 6 steps down the first flight, and Joanne starts calling out, and we're asking, can you knock on the wall and stuff like that. And no word of a lie, I'm getting goosebumps as I explain this. In my ear I heard like a... And I just said to Joanne, I went, did you hear that? She went, yeah. And I went, I know my belly's been rumbling all night, but my belly don't sound like that. And it didn't scare me, but this was the area where that Joan, where she allegedly jumped off the stairs to kill herself. Now that did freak me out a little bit. I wasn't like I say, I wasn't scared, but it was just like, something like that has never happened to me before. But that will stick in my mind for a long time. At this point, my hands were freezing, and I had to say to Joanna, you ain't got any gloves, have you, love? Do you know what I mean? So she lent me her gloves, and for like the last sort of half an hour, I could actually warm my hands up. So that was alright, wasn't it? Yeah, appreciate that, Joanne, thank you. So, going back a little bit, while I was there, I planned to interview somebody from the team, but it's not that it slipped my mind, it's that there was a lot going on, we were on a bit of a schedule, and it totally slipped my... Well, yeah, it did totally slip my mind, I'm going to be honest. So, I sent some questions over to Joanne to pass them on to some of the team, and they got back to me with some of their answers, so let's have a quick read of that. I sent these questions over to Joanna, and she sent them to everybody else in the team. I sent quite a few over, but I was more interested in what got them into being paranormal investigators, what kind of equipment they think works best, and does the energy of the people doing the investigation affect the results. So these are the answers they get. I posted quite a few questions to them, but I don't think I'm going to go through all of them, because I think at some point I'll get Joanne on this podcast so she can go into more depth about it. I asked the question, what equipment do you feel gets the best results in an investigation? Amy said, I'd have to say a good balance of both is good. For example, using Ouija boards and having Kit go off responding to questions at the same time is certainly more interesting than just one or the other. It's easy to focus on one or the other, but you can lose sight as to what you're wanting to achieve. But that's just her opinion based on experiences. David, another member of the team, said, if I'm honest, I favour my own senses, what I feel, think and see. But I think the others, depending on environment or situation, definitely have an important place in an investigation. Another member of the team, Sarah, said, I think the use of both is great to support any evidence gained. Diane said, your own senses are a good indicator, but certain tools are good too, like REM pods, EMF, dowsing rods, etc. Another member of the team, Paula, said, I love it all. Get more from the low tech personally, but love the drama of a bit of kit going off. So I have to agree with Paula really, because I think the low tech ways of doing it gain more results. See, back in the day, they didn't have all this kind of thing. They did seances, used Ouija boards, and I think, in my opinion, it's not definite, is it? It's just like, I just think that your own senses are a lot better. When I heard that sigh in my ear, I didn't have any special equipment or anything like that. It was just, but I'm just gutted that I didn't have my phone recording or anything like that, so I could pick it up and share it. But in my opinion, I agree with her. I think the low-tech options are a lot better. Does the energy of the people in the investigation help activity? So the answers I got to this were, absolutely. You find later in the night your energy drops, so does the activity. That's why they take lots of snacks, sugary snacks, just to keep the energy up. And obviously your mood as well can affect the energy in the room, which obviously could possibly affect any activity. I also asked the question, what is the most convincing evidence they've ever collected as a team? And it's quite interesting, this one actually. So this goes back to like the energy of the room and certain things sort of triggering activity. So they said here that the most convincing evidence they've ever had was at a place called Nottingley Town Hall. And I've never heard of this place, so I'm going to have a quick Google of it in a bit. And they said they caught EVPs of a person going whoop, and they would tell it. They said in this answer to this question, they said they were playing wartime music, which obviously I've seen this before on TV programs. Stuff like that can trigger responses from supposed spirits. And one of the final questions I asked them was what pushed them to form the investigation group. So Jason said, quite literally, the film Ghostbusters, that ever since watching that film he was obsessed with ghosts and hauntings, so he was reading books, he was completely and utterly fascinated by the subject. It wasn't till Most Haunted came out that people were able to get into locations more easily, as the paranormal world seemed to be getting a better understanding and altogether a bigger following, and people were becoming more and more interested in it. Jason also goes on to explain that he'd had family and friends who were saying that they had things going on in their home and what could they do about it. So this pushed him to form the team and to try and also help people who are experiencing these things. I also asked him what was his most active investigation, and he said it was Sunderland Air Museum again, which I have not done any research in whatsoever, so I will at some point have a quick look at that. But he said he saw the apparition of a man, and he said it's the only place the team have been to where all of them have seen the apparition of a bomber pilot on the museum CCTV walking through the hangar. So West Yorkshire Paranormal are not your conventional sort of, oh, we're going to get all our evidence and post it on TikTok, Facebook and Instagram. They're not going to do that. They're doing it to actually investigate and like gather as much evidence as they can. But I should have asked the question, really, what are they going to do with all this evidence? But I think that's a good way of doing it. They're not doing it for likes or clicks or whatever. All in all, the time I spent with that group and at the bunker, I thought it was absolutely fascinating. I've never been there like before or since. I'd like to go again during the day because it's obviously going to be a completely different atmosphere. But what I took away from the investigation is you've got to be very, very patient. And honestly, like I said, we were there for from 7 o'clock till 1 in the morning, so 6 hours. And when I heard that sigh in my ear, it just made me think, and I thought it was worth it for that. I really enjoyed myself, and I just want to say thank you to them all, and hopefully I'll be joining them again. So I hope you enjoyed this little episode about Hat Green Nuclear Bunker and my experiences on the investigation with West Yorhshire Paranormal. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. Just search Ghosts and That. And if you've got any super spooky stories, or you just want to have a chat about the paranormal, I know I've got my mate coming on in a bit and he wants to talk about aliens, because that's under the and that part of Ghosts and That. We're going to get him on and have a good chat, couple of beers, and talk about aliens and that. If you want to send me an email, it's ghostsandthat@gmail.com. I just want to say thank you for listening to this episode. If you've not listened to episode number 1, give it a go. Rate the podcast, send me a comment on it, whatever. Do what you got to do. And I just want to say, people, you know what I'm going to say? Keep an eye out for them ghosts and that.